Welcome to DD History, where we try to tell compelling stories of the past. We hope you enjoy and join us for more videos in the future. Today we're taking a trip back to the Peloponnesian War for one of the boldest and most disastrous military campaigns in the ancient world, the Sicilian Expedition. Picture this, it's 415 BCE. Athens has been locked in a long, grinding war with Sparta. The people are tired, resources are stretched thin, and everyone is looking for that one big move that will finally tip the scales. And then, bam, someone has an idea. Hey, why don't we sail hundreds of miles to Sicily and take over a giant city called Syracuse? That'll solve everything. And just like that, one of the largest fleets Athens ever assembled sets sail. Over 130 warships, thousands of soldiers, and enough supplies to stock a Costco. The city cheers them off like it's a victory parade. The mood, confident, the reality, oh boy, not so much. Because this isn't a story of Athens at its greatest, it's the story of Athens flying too close to the sun. What starts as a plan for glory quickly spirals into a mess of bad leadership, political drama, and battles gone horribly wrong. In the end, the Sicilian Expedition becomes one of the most famous cautionary tales in history, the moment when ambition outgrew reality. So buckle up, because we're about to explore how Athens went from cheering on its fleet to watching its empire crumble, all thanks to a disastrous Sicilian adventure. The year is 415 BCE. Athens and Sparta are locked in the Peloponnesian War, and honestly, the Athenians are kind of bored of it. The war has dragged on for years, resources are stretched thin, and morale is, let's call it, meh. Then someone says, hey, what if we went to Sicily? You know, that giant island way over there? Tons of grain, valuable trade routes, powerful allies. Syracuse is rich, and if we conquer it, Athens could basically dominate the Mediterranean. Sounds insane, right? But to Athens, it sounded brilliant. Enter Alcibiades, young, handsome, ridiculously ambitious, and the kind of guy who always thinks bigger is better. He says, we're not just fighting Sparta, we're building an empire so massive, people will tell stories about us forever. Meanwhile, Nicias, the old cautious general, is sitting in the corner waving his arms like, hello? Bad idea. This is how you lose everything. Did the Athenians listen? Of course not. They voted for adventure, glory, and a giant road trip across the sea. The great debate. When it came time to officially decide, Nicias tried one last trick to stop this madness. He stood before the assembly and said, okay, fine, but if we're doing this, it will take an impossible amount of money, ships, soldiers, and supplies. It's basically too big to pull off. Athens heard this and said, awesome, let's do exactly that. And so, the Athenians assembled the largest military expedition in their history. We're talking 134 triremes, those sleek, fast, ramming ships, plus transports, cavalry, siege engines, tens of thousands of soldiers, and mountains of supplies. Even Thucydides, the historian who usually keeps it cool and dry, admits this was the most impressive fleet Athens ever sent out. It wasn't just an army, it was an empire on the move. Now here's where things get messy. Athens didn't send just one general. Oh no, they sent three. Alcibiades, young, ambitious, wants fame, glory, and maybe a statue of himself in every city. Nicias, old, cautious, would rather be at home with a cup of wine and a blanket. Lamachus, brave, experienced, respected by soldiers, but politically weak. Imagine putting three wildly different drivers behind the same steering wheel. One wants to speed off a cliff, one wants to stay parked forever, and one just wants to get home in one piece. What could possibly go wrong? Quick pause. If you're enjoying this wild ride through ancient history, hit like, subscribe. Now back to the action. In the summer of 415 BCE, Athens was buzzing. Families gathered at the Piraeus harbor to watch as the colossal fleet prepared to leave. The sight was breathtaking. Hundreds of ships, sails catching the sunlight, oars ready, crews chanting. Parents hugged their sons, wives cried, children waved. It was emotional, inspiring, and also a little terrifying. Everyone knew this was the biggest gamble Athens had ever taken. As the fleet sailed out, the Athenians felt invincible. Nothing could stop them, except maybe themselves. And here's where the drama kicks in. Right before the expedition left, a religious scandal shook Athens. Someone had gone around the city at night and vandalized the Hermae, sacred statues of Hermes that stood outside houses. Their faces were smashed, their, well, let's say private parts were knocked off. This was considered a really bad omen. People freaked out. And guess who got blamed? Yep, Alcibiades. Now, Alcibiades was known for being wild at parties, but smashing sacred statues? He swore he was innocent. But his enemies back home weren't about to let him off the hook. So just as the fleet set sail, Athens recalled Alcibiades to stand trial. Alcibiades thought about going back, but then thought, you know what? Forget it. Athens doesn't deserve me. And instead of returning, he defected. First, he went to Sparta, Athens' enemy, and spilled all the military secrets. He basically told them, here's the exact plan, here's the weak spots, and here's how you can ruin it. Later, he even worked with Persia. Alcibiades was like the ancient Greek version of someone switching sports teams every season, except each time he switched, people died. So now Athens was trying to conquer Sicily without their most ambitious leader, stuck with Nicias in charge. When the fleet finally landed in Sicily, they set up at Catana, not far from Syracuse, the powerful city they wanted to crush. At first, things went surprisingly well. They won a few skirmishes, scared some locals into joining their side, and even looked like they might be able to surround Syracuse with a wall and cut them off. But then, Lamachus, the one general who actually knew what he was doing, died in a clash with the Syracusans. That left Nicias, the guy who had been against this mission from the start, in sole command. And Nicias' strategy was basically, wait, delay, don't commit. He hesitated at every opportunity. While Athens dragged its feet, Syracuse rallied, fortified, and called for reinforcements. And that's where we'll pause the story for today. Athens had set out with the biggest, boldest army it had ever raised. But instead of quick victories, hesitation set in, and enemies grew stronger. To make matters worse, Sparta now knew all of Athens' plans, thanks to Alcibiades' betrayal. The grand dream of conquering Sicily was slowly turning into a nightmare. In Part 2, we'll watch that nightmare unfold, the arrival of Spartan reinforcements, the brutal siege of Syracuse, and the catastrophic downfall of the Athenian army.